Tonight's topic of discussion, Twitter stans, force for good, or the first horseman of the upcoming apocalypse. Arguing for the negative is Grace Choate Jr., founder of FreeDomFighter.com, a patriotic dominatrix website and service. Arguing in the affirmative for the former is Lisa Foppingham III, head of the Twitter stan division of the ACLU. Ladies, let's begin. First and foremost, I think that Twitter beef essentially enables a culture of cowardice. I've always been of the opinion that this country started going downhill the second that we outlawed child labor and started preaching this hippy-dippy pacifist bullshit. I say bring back the violence, okay? What I believe is that Twitter enables pussies, okay? You want to start beef with someone, why don't you go have a fist fight in a parking lot like a real goddamn American? And I feel like Twitter acts as a very convenient conduit for people to channel their bloodthirst instead of going into a gladiator match like our proud ancestors used to. Second, the celebrities that these Twitter stans are proclaiming proudly that they would die for, wouldn't take a piss on them if they were on fire, okay? Could you imagine if one of these Twitter stans was writhing in pain on the floor in front of, say an infamous Twitter stan idol like a Nicki Minaj or maybe a member of BTS? These people have been protected and wealthy and gorgeous for so long that I don't think that they've ever witnessed human pain for the past 5 years. If anything, they would watch one of their stans writhing around in pain and probably develop some sort of a kink for it because it's been so long since they've actually been witness to human suffering. And I don't think that these stans understand that these are the people that they're supposedly going to die for. Not to mention that being a stan, right, is essentially a part of their identity. A fundamental, quintessential part of their identity. Now, I would say that idol worship should be something that is an occasional indulgence, right? Not a part, an integral part of who you identify as. And I would say to most of these Twitter stans, bitch, get a fucking hobby. Learn how to quilt, learn how to crochet, start committing crimes, evade your taxes, I don't know. Literally anything else, aside from basically saying that you would die or kill for one of these emaciated feather boys like a Timothy Chalamet or a Harry Styles. Furthermore, you would think that the people that these stans are willing to die for would be cool, but they're not. They're either borderline ornate slaves like some of these K-pop idols, or they're these sad sort of porcelain-looking men like the former members of One Direction. I would say that at least back in the day, the stans of, say, rock stars, they were idolizing people that were cool. They were idolizing people that had ingested or consumed so many illicit substances that I'm assuming their blood is radioactive. You know that when Janis Joplin took a shit, that shit illuminated the toilet bowl, right? That's someone that I want to stand for. Who are people standing now? Fucking Luna?
Now, Sarah, here's why I think they will be amazing at what they do and why they should be the first horsemen of the upcoming apocalypse, okay? I'm gonna give you 3 reasons. They are resilient, they are cunning, they are evil, and partially a little unwell, okay? Now, I want you to hear me out. They make a plan and they execute it, all right? Area 51, they had an idea. They said, we don't like what the government is doing. We wanna keep them open. We wanna make sure we get answers. Right? They all said, we're going to meet at this place on this day. And they arrived. They were there. Brings me to my next point. They don't care about consequences. That word doesn't register in their head, okay? They were unaware that they were walking into what could have been the worst massacre in the past 30 years, right? Men with guns, aliens with guns, who knows? They did not care. They said, we want answers to the questions that we have, right? Next. Analyzing skills, unmatched. They can figure out when Beyonce took a shit last, what kind of consistency it was, all judging from how she walked out the door, right? If she's a little uneven, she just took a shit and it was soft. Do you get what I'm saying? This is why I think we need them in the front lines to lead us to victory. So you say that the people they're willing to die for, to kill for, would not give a shit about them, right? But you have to admit they are willing to die. They are willing to kill, right? We need that sort of mentality. There are certain things, I think it was back in possibly the Trump administration. There was a woman who sent her used pad to the congressman's doorstep, right? We need that type of mentality in the front lines. They are driven. They are willing to stand for something that makes sense, right? And even though these celebrities may not make sense, they are willing to stand. Right? And you say they hide behind their computers. They're not willing to actually go out and do something. I give you Beyonce. There was a man somehow was able to sneak past not 1, not 2 security guards, but 3. Get on stage, right? Snuck past all, he blended in. Practically. He acted like he was a dancer, snuck past all the dancers, and managed to get backstage and actually put hands on Jay-Z himself. Those are the people we need in the front lines, and I think they are important to society.
I would say that perhaps if these people were being recruited by the military-industrial complex, who I support, and if anything, I think they need more money and more resources, then perhaps they could be useful. They could be utilized by society. The problem, of course, is that Twitter stans are not encouraged to actually go to the front lines, and let's be real, their bloodthirst might be able to manifest itself in sort of beating the crap out of security guards if they stand in between them and their, idol god. However, I think that if put on the actual battlefields, they would crumble, they would fall. They would be unable to pick up that bayonet and basically disembowel the, I'm assuming, Chinese soldier that they would be fighting against, because my perception of warfare is still stuck in the 1700s. Now, I have a question for you, Miss Florence. Have you ever actually interacted with one of these Twitter stans in your entire life?
I will do you one better. I was a Twitter stan at one point in my life.
And you're willing to confess that on camera?
I am proudly willing to confess that on camera.
Who were you a stan of?
I was a stan of Pentatonic.
Miss Florence, you could have told me that you were an active recruiter for ISIS, and I would think higher of you. So to answer my question, you have not actually interacted with one of these Twitter stans in real life, nor have you had your life destroyed by one of them. You yourself were a part of this disturbing cult. Well, I would just say that if you were ever within the vicinity of one of these freaks, you would understand how genuinely repulsive these people are, and that they need to be put down, like dogs. Publicly, I would suggest.
Now, you yourself have said they deserve to be put down, right? They are the lowest form of human, mammals, whatever you want to call us, right? Why would you not be willing to put them on the front line and sacrifice them first?
I mean, here's the thing. I have absolutely no problem. If anything, I would suggest sort of employing the strategy that the Mongol warriors would do, where they would take prisoners of war, they would dress them up in the sort of uniform of a soldier, and they would have them stand all the way in the front of the lines and then force them to slit their own throats right as the enemy was sort of making its way up the hill, just to prove to the people that they were fighting that they truly thought of their lives as being entirely disposable. I would actively encourage Twitter stans to be used in this way. My argument is that they would never and could never do that. Their wrists are so feeble and weak that if they attempted to even slit their own throats, I feel like they would accidentally sort of fling the knife or the blade in the opposite direction, probably poking another person in the eye. If anything, they might fling it in the direction of the enemy, which essentially means that they're giving them even more weapons.
It's a very compelling point. Sorry, I do have to admit.
Well, I do have another question for you.
Yes.
Are you willing to concede that there is a possibility that some percentage of these Twitter stans are actually foreign agents sent to incite violence within the American population?
I do believe that. Yes, I do. I think the way they are so easily able to band together and ruin someone's life, per se, if they wish to, right? I think that could very well be the government trying to pin us against each other. But I do believe that if we were against the government in some way, they would have our backs and they would want to proceed in some form of action against the government. Am I making sense?
Yes, in the sense that if America was a Nicki Minaj, was a Blackpink, that these stans would sort of band together in defense of her.
I do believe that. I believe if you put any of these celebrities up front and said, we want you to fight the front lines and to fight for us, they would have no choice. It's almost like they're under a spell. They owe their lives to these celebrities, to these people that they so-called stan. What does a stan even mean?
Am I supposed to answer that question? A stan is a reference to the early 2000s Eminem song that was called Dear Stan, where a rabid, sort of stalkerish fan named Stan wrote incessantly multiple letters to Eminem saying how much he loved him, and then eventually getting frustrated that he didn't write back, and I think assumedly sort of driving off of a cliff. I can't really remember the details of the music video. I was too busy masturbating. I would say that that is the origin of the term stan. And based on the behavior of some of these people on Twitter, I would say that, them driving off of a cliff might actually be a preferable ending to their story.
Stalker fans, we call them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What I hear is drive. determination, perseverance.
Would you suggest then that if we were to transform America into sort of a yesified version of itself, create multiple social media accounts, get a PR team, because the one that they have right now is absolutely atrocious, sort of create a sort of fan cultish culture around America, that this would essentially be a very valuable recruitment technique that the military should employ?
Yes, I think Twitter stands are our future.
Well, I feel like this actually might be a point of agreement between us.
God bless America.
Salam alaikum.